bunch of techniques. I mean, it is that, but really, Jiu-Jitsu, at least the way that I view it and the way I want you to, if you're kind enough to indulge me for the next 2 or 3 hours, the way I want you to try to view it is Jiu-Jitsu is a battle of the relative alignment between two individuals. When we say alignment, we are referring to your base, your posture, your structure, all working together to basically allow your body to be as effective as possible at generating force into your opponent and as effective as possible at dealing with the force that your opponent is generating into you. I will give quick definitions on these things. Don't worry, no quiz at the end of this. You don't have to take notes or anything, but I know Sean's taking notes, so feel free to write this down. Base is a platform from which to apply and absorb force. But wait, there's more. Base is also relative to your opponent and it's relative to your goals. So while we understand that we need base to be able to generate force, if I want to shove somebody over, I need to have base. If I want to avoid somebody being able to shove me over, like knock me out, sweep me, I need to have good base. But I'll give an example. If I'm caught in an outside heel hook right now, and my response to that is, sweet, I've got some great base. I'm going to stay right here. Is that good base now that my ACL is about to hit? No. I need to drop my hips to the mat so that I can generate the force to strip your hips or strip your feet off my hips. That's an example of base being relative to your opponent, being relative to your goal. So don't get confused about base being like, be heavy and be on top at all costs, because sometimes it's not that. Base obviously has an ultimate goal, which is I kick your ass, you don't kick my ass. So your base is whatever allows you to generate force into your opponent, absorb the force that your opponent is generating into you. Your base is relative to your opponent, it's relative to your goals. Any questions on that? Sweet. Posture is the integrity of your spinal column. As distinct from strong, upright posture that usually when I say, just like literally say the word posture, half the room does that. They're like, ooh, well, you said posture. This is totally fine posture for a lot of things. It's pretty bad for defending rear naked chokes and guillotines. It's certainly not great for guard retention in some circumstances, right? Our spine has to round, our spine has to bend, and our spine has to twist a little bit. That's totally fine. What you don't want to do is anything that bends or twists your spine to the point where you become weaker. So as I do this is totally fine. My spine is in a relatively neutral bent position. But if someone makes me do this, no, that's not great, right? My spine is now compromised to the point where I'm weaker. Conversely, my spine could be just bolt straight. But if my hips are pointed that way and my shoulders are pointed that way, I'm way weaker than I would otherwise be, right? So it's not about your spine being straight. It's about avoiding putting your spine in positions. I can bend my spine. If my shoulder is reinforcing my neck, this is fine for my neck. But if my shoulder's not right, this is really bad for my neck. You guys get what I'm getting with this? So yeah, try to think of just the integrity of your spine. Generally speaking, hips and shoulders pointed in the same direction. Your spine should feel like it's supported by your core and not your core is desperately fighting to keep it safe and not connected to your limbs. A simple way of thinking of it in terms of feel is if you feel like you could do strong, let's say a shoulder press, you're good. If your spine is so bent that you don't feel like you can move something with a shoulder press, your limbs are disconnected. If you don't feel like your leg is able to move powerfully because your spine's so twisted up, because your leg muscles are disconnected from your core muscles, that's a bad thing. If they can all work together, you're good, you have good posture. Does that make sense? Okay, so we've got base, we've got posture. Structure is the efficient positioning of your limbs to achieve a goal. My go-to example of this. If my goal is to hold a push-up position, this is good structure. My elbows are locked, this is fine too. Anything where you can comfortably lock your elbows out so your bones are supporting your weight. Now, I could achieve the goal like this. I'm still holding the push-up position, I'm still achieving the goal, but I'm doing it inefficiently now, right? My muscles are starting to fatigue, especially after what Sean just put me through. So I am definitely able to achieve the goal. I'm just doing it very inefficiently, right? This is extra important for the high-calorie grappler, right? You can absolutely escape side control like this, but if you're 120 pounds, you can't escape side control like that. So think about the efficient positioning of your limbs to achieve a goal. A simple heuristic for structure is whenever possible, use bone instead of muscle. Right? I'm using bone right now to support my weight. I'm using bone right now to support someone's weight. I'm using that kind of thing. So whenever possible, use bone instead of muscle. When you have to use muscle, you want to use all the muscle available to get the job done. Example, if I'm fighting an arm bar, my biceps alone is not going to cut it. This is better. This is even better. I've now recruited more muscle to defend. Now, forget it. You're not getting my arm away from my body. So that's kind of a short course on structure. So we have our structure, our posture, and our base. Those three things create our alignment. If we have good alignment, whatever you want to try to do in jiu-jitsu, you are now halfway to being able to try and do it. The flip side of alignment is some people are late and they miss the most important part of the seminar. The flip side of alignment is that the other person has it. So if I have good alignment and you have good alignment and I try to do a move on you, the odds of that move working are not great, especially unless you're like a beginner and you just don't know what the moves look like. But if you have good alignment and you know what the moves look like, the moves are not that likely to work at that point. What you now need is you need to take one element, preferably two, ideally all three of alignment away from someone. If I have three and you have two, that's great. If I have three and you have one, that's awesome. If I have three and you have zero, I can probably kick anyone's ass. Like, no one's effective when they're like this. Lots of people are effective when they're like this. Right? So everything we're going to do today is just going to be based around how can we further your understanding. And when I say understanding, I more mean feeling, because ultimately what I'm doing is trying to intellectualize something that's all about feel. Right? That's why extraordinarily stupid people can be very good at jiu-jitsu. Gordon Ryan, Mark Harris, Jake Shield. We could go down the list for hours. Right? Very, very, very dumb people can be very good at jiu-jitsu because it ultimately is about feel. So we're going to play some games that will allow you to feel this stuff in action. We're probably going to have to take a vote because we have not gotten a strong, like, I want to do this topic yet. But whatever we do, we're going to do it through the lens of we're going to play some games, right? So everything we do tonight will be live. I would encourage you to keep that in mind when you set your intensity dial. We'll talk about intensity and complexity as we go on. Hint, it should never be at 10. So we will explore that, right? The why we just discussed, let's quickly discuss the how. Frames, levers, and especially wedges if we do leg locks, but wedges in general. Frame is just your structure, like your bones supporting weight. A frame supports weight. Your weight, your partner's weight, your combined weight, right? Right now my leg is a frame, now it's a lever. As long as it's supporting weight, it's difficult to move. As soon as the weight comes off it, my spine, it can be a frame, I'm pushing against you, it can be a lever. My arm can be a frame, can be a frame, can be a lever. When we do jiu-jitsu, all we're doing, we're playing with frames, we're playing with levers. Frames support weight, levers multiply force. I want to use frames against you. I want to use levers against you. I use frames against you by preventing you from putting your weight directly on me. I use levers against you by manipulating your body. Levers are a more efficient way of manipulating, or like generating force, transmitting force, I should say, into someone's body than pushing directly. So all we're doing is we're playing a game of frames and levers. You can change levers into frames. This is a frame right now. You push me, you've changed it into a lever, and now you can control me. We change levers into frames, we change frames into levers, or we deny our opponent access to frames and levers. Ultimately, that's all we're ever doing. All right? I'll go over a definition of wedges if we need to get into it in greater depth. Any questions on any of that? That's all jiu-jitsu is. It's you playing with frames and levers to affect someone's base posture and structure. And if you have a good feel for that, you can know 50 moves or you can know 500 moves. You'll be good. But if you don't have a good feel for that, you're going to need to know a lot of moves because the few moves that you do know, they're not going to be that effective if you don't have a good feel for it. You can be a world champion and know 3 or 4 like good attacks, but just have immense feel for the relative alignment between you and your opponent. That's the secret sauce. Any questions on that? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. All right, let's have a vote. We have a few different options. We can do leg locks. That's generally fairly popular. We can do guard retention versus passing. That's also one of the 2 most popular seminar topics that I get asked to do is leg locks and guard retention versus guard passing. Which I know that seems very basic, but it's honestly not. We can get super rabbit holey with that stuff. If you are so comfortable with your guard that you feel like you could enter competition and not have the slightest concern that your guard would get past, then I would say you don't need to work on your guard retention. Like if you're that confident, everybody else can work on their. And same thing for passing. If you are prepared to enter a tournament and be like, I will pass everyone's guard in this tournament. If you're not that confident in that, you can work on that, even though it's a quote-unquote basic thing. So those are the 2 most popular topics. We can definitely get into back attacks, top control, kimura control, omoplata stuff. There's a whole guillotine control, like a lot of different topics. Are we comfortable to vote between the most popular two, or do we want to consider any of the other ones?
The other ones?
Consider,
Other ones? Like the other ones.
Consider the other ones?
Yeah.
Okay, I will start from like omoplata. Is anyone interested in that? I have 3 finishes by omoplata against black belts in competition. It's a real submission. You've been lied to that it isn't. Right? Is anyone interested in that? Not really. Okay, kimura control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 votes for kimura control. Guillotine control. 1, 2. You can't vote for other things. All right. Okay. Guillotine control. We have 1 vote. So 2 votes. 6 to 2 for. Okay. We could get into back attacks. And breaking the turtle would be probably the best way to describe like how to attack the back effectively from the turtle. Not a lot of interest in that. 1 vote for that. 6, 2, 1. Guard retention versus guard passing. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Leg locks. 1, 2, 3. Okay, guard retention versus guard passing. Democracy in action. All right. Tell America, it can actually work. Okay, so we're going to play a game called Fuck Your Jiu-Jitsu. The essence of this game is that there is a constraint on one player. The constraint is designed to elicit the attitude of, I don't give a fuck about your jiu-jitsu. I am so confident in both my skill, but not just my skill, my desire to improve my skill, that I'm gonna allow you to do a bunch of stuff, and then I'm gonna deal with it. So if you can kind of start to channel that mindset, that will be very helpful. If you go into this game with the mentality of, I'm gonna try to win this game, and there's always a couple of you, in every room, someone wants to win the drill, you will still get something out of this, you'll just get less out of it, right? First off, you'll be tired after 1 or 2 rounds of this, because this is one of the more physically intensive games we play. Leg locks, that's easy. It's 2 people sitting on their butt doing this. You can do this forever and not get tired. If we're doing passing versus retention, at least one of you will be working pretty hard. So if at the end of each round you're like, but I won, after a couple of rounds you're going to stop winning anyway because you're just going to be exhausted. So like again, intensity dial, there are 2 dials, intensity and complexity. Everyone has an intensity dial that goes to 10. Complexity dial at white belt goes to 1. At blue belt it goes to 2. You can imagine it gets up to 10, but not for very many people. So you can't like fuck with the intensity dial, or sorry, the complexity dial too much. You can definitely fuck with the intensity dial. To start with, set it at like well below 5, right? 2 or 3 would be great. And then play with it as we go. Your goal is to not be exhausted at the end of any round. If you're breathing really hard at the end of a round, you've done it wrong. Right? Because we're just going to do a bunch of these rounds throughout the night. And I want you to get as much out of this as possible. So we're going to play a game like that. Here, can I work a second? I'm just going to get you on your back. These are the rules. Don't worry, you're going to fuck it up once in a while. I'll call you out on it and I'll insult you. It'll be fine. No one will die. All right? The constraint here is on the guard player. I can pass as guard with any form of passing I like. So movement-based passing is fine. Pressure passing is fine. If you want to do like rolling kimuras and rolling guild, any kind of passing is fine. You know, don't knee your partner in the nuts, no striking. But any form of passing is totally fine. My partner is only doing guard retention, so he is only playing a passive open guard from his back, which means that he's not allowed to sit up unless he's doing it purely to do like a frame and a hip escape. So like, if I get here and he wants to frame my leg and like turn away and get up on his elbow and hip escape quickly, now he has to go right back on his back. So he can't play a seated guard, but you can sit up if you need to do that, right? So if he wants to turn towards me and frame me with this hand and get up on his elbow and hip escape, that's totally fine, but just go right back on your back, right? So that's the only circumstance where we'll be sitting up. Does that make sense? Okay. Other than that, if he's on his back, which he will be the whole time, he can high leg. There you go. He could try to just grand be like over here. He can grand like any action, any guard retention movement that you know how to do is totally fine. You can go to turtle. So if he goes to turtle, now it's over. If my chest touches his back. So basically, what would score an advantage in an IBJJF context, we'll consider that a guard pass because you had to give up something to the other person. I know it doesn't count as a guard pass, but if you have to do that, that's a problem. If come back. However, if he goes to turtle and I don't yet make it to his back and he keeps moving, that's totally fine. You can roll to, you can keep moving the other way, like just go to turtle and keep going. That's all fine. And then he goes right back onto his back and keeps doing guard retention. Does that make sense? So no gripping. You can't grab your partner's wrists. You can't close a half guard. You can't make butterfly hooks. You can't go to De La Hiva. None of the offensive guard play that you're accustomed to is allowed. You're literally just this person here trying to use frames and movement to keep your partner from passing your guard. Every time there's a guard pass, we reset and we start again. So it's what's known as a finite game for one participant, and it's an infinite game for the other participant. There's no win condition for the guard player. You just keep going. The win condition is only for the guard passer. Any questions? 3 seconds, right? You have to hold the guard pass for 3 seconds before it's considered a pass. If your partner has like beaten your guard and you're going ape shit as the guard player, big hint, waste of time. Your guard wasn't good enough. Learn. Because you didn't, like that wasn't a good result. If somebody gets to here and I'm like, and I get my guard back and you're like, sweet, I didn't get my guard passed. Yeah, but your guard still sucks. Right? Like you have to go ape shit to recover your guard and then you're tired at the end of the round, you will not learn. You don't learn effectively when you're exhausted. You will put more into your brain if you're just kind of calm and taking in the information. Any questions on that? All right. Can we set a timer for 3 minutes and then 3 minutes again with no break in between? Let's do that. Let's get the training. You guys do the clapping thing. I can see that. Yeah. Is it 1, 2, 3, clap, or 1, 2, 3, and then clap.
1, 2, 3, clap.
1, 2. All right. 1, 2, 3. Which is it?
It's different in the evenings than in the mornings.
2. 1, 2.
Two.
Okay, 1, 2. Let's do this, guys.